to buy land
Correct.
and get involved in that. So you're looking at three different aspects of the same issue, but part of it for an investor is the volatility underlying all of this in commodity prices and land prices is such that it makes it very hard to get a traditional listed company with smooth earnings that everybody likes. So there's a bit of an incompatibility, or if you will, a risk appetite that has to be involved for a business here or abroad that's founded in these markets.
Gentlemen, thank you for your thoughts. Always thought-provoking. Up next, we ask our guests where to from here, so please stay with us. Welcome back to Money Talks. Plenty going on this week in Sandy Maier's native land, the mighty U.S. of A. The U.S. Senate has given the go-ahead to overhaul the country's financial system. The reforms include new government powers to break up any company that becomes so big its failure could threaten the economy. It's designed to reduce the risks that banks take and to boost consumer protection. My question to Sandy, who's been a banker around the world, can it work?
Well, it can work. The United States was very successful in the 30s in responding to the crises of the Great Depression and in making fundamental changes to banking and investment banking, which largely held together for 30, 40, 50 years. The dismantling of those reforms and regulations arguably set the scene for recent problems. But these are quite fundamental changes. The terminology changes, too big to fail versus separation of various powers. You get different aspects of it, but fundamental changes can work. Tinkering around the edges doesn't work.
It's supposed to stop another AIG scandal happening. Update us on what's happened there, Sandy.
Well, AIG engaged in quite a bit of risky conduct and was caught, in a tough period where the government got involved with essentially picking winners and losers. And some institutions like Lehman Brothers got involved in you're a loser, and some institutions like AIG got support. And there's a lot of fairly cynical comment about the basis upon which that was done, the speed at which it was done, whether it was done correctly. And there's always a lot of hindsight. But AIG, survives to play another day. The counterparties of AIG did well out of that bailout. Fundamentally, most of that whole derivative market, something like 80% of it was concentrated in the hands of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players. And that gets back to that too big to fail issue and how do you regulate, how do you accommodate that?
And they were, in effect, being done for fraud. They've now come to the table with a $725 million U.S. deal, if you like, to keep all those shareholders happy who say they were ripped off by poor business practices. Do we have anything like that here in New Zealand?
Well, not on this scale. I mean, if you hold U.S. equities, you'll know that the lawsuits involved in this will go on for years, and everybody will be contacted by all sorts of lawyers in all sorts of places with class action suits, and you'll fill out a lot of paperwork, and eventually you'll get $27.47 for your $3,000 loss or whatever it is. And that's just the way the U.S. system works and the way it addresses certain problems. That's not fundamentally true here.
Okay, let's move over to Europe now. All eyes, of course, Friday are going to be on the results of the stress tests. What are we likely to see, James?
Yeah, the news so far is out of a lot of the countries, out of Spain, out of Ireland, they've said that they've done their own stress tests and their banks have come out squeaky clean.
Can we trust them?
Well, I mean,
what else are they going to say?
That's right. They're in a bit of a tricky situation, so they're probably going to go along those lines. Some of the news that I've seen so far has indicated that we might see an increase in some of the capital ratios from 4% up to 6%, but all the lowest, the banks are in the worst situation of all have adequate capital above those levels. So, I think it is going to be quite a big story for financial markets coming out on Friday. If there are any surprises, then we could see a bit of a shake-up, as we have seen over the past sort of 2 months, especially in Europe.
And I was intrigued to read that Swiss bank accounts are no longer going to be secret. Sandy, is this long overdue? Probably
is. I mean, in the modern world, the idea that you can place money in an established, open, democratic country and be secretive vis-a-vis your own tax authorities is probably fundamentally outdated. I don't mean to shill for the IRD, but in an open environment where money moves around and records need to be kept and there needs to be a degree of transparency, I think probably long overdue for some reform.
Are we going to see it in the Grand Caymans then? Is there going to be a ripple effect, a domino effect?
Oh, I think that all jurisdictions will be involved, and those that don't cooperate in a minimum way will, in essence, be renegades.
So what's the solution going to be? We're going to have to go back to putting our money under our mattresses?
Well, I think a lot of people have to go back to paying taxes. I don't know if that's the same thing, and that doesn't strike me as too horrible a situation for most.
Very quickly, gentlemen, what's coming up in the next 7 days? What are you going to be watching, James?
The stress test on Friday, I guess, from the European banks, it's going to be a big one. And for us here in New Zealand, I guess the biggest impact will be potentially on the currency and a bit of movement from there. Of course, next week, we've got the Reserve Bank announcement on the official cash rate. As I said earlier, we're picking a 25-point increase, but if we see any changes from there, then likely to see some fairly big movements in interest rates and the currency for us here.
Great. And Sandy, what about you? What are you going to be keeping an eye on?
I keep an eye on two things mostly these days. One, the raising of further deposits under the government guarantee with the public, and the incoming equity investor in those negotiations.
Have a great week, gentlemen. Thanks for your time. Always fascinating. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks to my guests, rural economist James Shortall from the ASB and CEO of South Canterbury Finance, Sandy Maier. We'd love to hear your feedback, so why not go to our website and drop us a line? Don't forget to check out my weekly blog. And we'll give the last word to Woody Allen, who once said, "If only God would give me some clear sign, like making a large deposit in my name in a Swiss bank account." Keep the faith. See you next week.